The Tigray War, which erupted in November 2020, has plunged Ethiopia into a humanitarian crisis and shaken the very foundations of its unity. Welcome to Cryptic Mystic Vault, where we explore the enigmatic tales and unsolved puzzles of history. The conflict is centered in the Tigray region, home to the Tigrayan people who make up roughly 6% of Ethiopia's population. The Tigray People's Liberation Front, or TPLF, a political party that dominated Ethiopian politics for nearly 3 decades, has been at loggerheads with the federal government. This clash is rooted in historical grievances, political ambitions, and ethnic divisions that have long simmered beneath the surface of Ethiopian society. Understanding the Tigray conflict requires delving into Ethiopia's complex tapestry of ethnicities and its turbulent political landscape. The country is home to over 80 different ethnic groups, each with its own language, culture, and history. This diversity, while a source of national pride, has also been a source of friction and conflict. The roots of the current crisis can be traced back to the downfall of the Derg regime in 1991. The TPLF, then a rebel group, played a pivotal role in overthrowing the Derg and establishing a new government based on ethnic federalism. This system aimed to devolve power to different regions based on ethnicity, granting them a degree of autonomy. Despite its successes, the TPLF's tight grip on power and its perceived marginalization of other ethnic groups fueled resentment and opposition. This discontent grew over time, culminating in widespread protests that shook the country in the mid-2010s. The protests forced the TPLF to make concessions, including the appointment of Abiy Ahmed from the Oromo ethnic group as Prime Minister in 2018. Abiy's rise to power was seen as a watershed moment, ushering in a new era of hope and reform. He released political prisoners, lifted restrictions on the press, and made peace with neighboring Eritrea. However, Abiy's reforms also alienated the TPLF. He moved to consolidate power, sidelining the TPLF and dismantling the system of ethnic federalism that had been the cornerstone of Ethiopian politics for decades. This move was seen by many Tigrayans as an assault on their identity and autonomy. Abiy's attempts to centralize power were met with resistance from various quarters, including the TPLF, who saw it as a direct threat to their interests and the autonomy of the Tigray region. The TPLF retreated to its stronghold in Tigray, defying Abiy's authority and further escalating the tensions between the two sides. The situation came to a head in September 2020 when the TPLF held regional elections in defiance of the federal government, which had postponed national elections due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This act of defiance was the final straw for Abiy, who declared the TPLF a terrorist organization and launched a military offensive against Tigray in November 2020. In November 2020, a nation erupts. The outbreak of war in Tigray sent shockwaves throughout Ethiopia and the international community. What began as a domestic political crisis rapidly escalated into a full-blown armed conflict with devastating consequences. The Ethiopian National Defense Force, backed by Eritrean troops and Amhara regional forces, launched a relentless offensive against the Tigray People's Liberation Army. The conflict has been characterized by brutal violence, widespread human rights abuses, and a humanitarian catastrophe. Both sides have been accused of committing atrocities, including massacres, sexual violence, and ethnic cleansing. The United Nations has warned of potential war crimes and crimes against humanity. The human cost of conflict was devastating. The war in Tigray has had a catastrophic impact on the civilian population. Hundreds of thousands of people have been displaced from their homes, seeking refuge in neighboring Sudan or in overcrowded camps within Ethiopia. The United Nations estimates that over 5 million people in Tigray are in dire need of humanitarian assistance. The conflict has exacerbated an already dire humanitarian situation in Tigray, which was already grappling with poverty, food insecurity, and limited access to basic services. The fighting has disrupted agricultural production, destroyed infrastructure, and hampered the delivery of aid. The impact on the most vulnerable, especially children, has been heart-wrenching. Many families are struggling to find food and shelter, and the future seems uncertain. The world responds with international involvement and condemnation. The international community has condemned the violence in Tigray and called for an immediate ceasefire. The United States, the European Union, and the African Union have all imposed sanctions on key figures and entities involved in the conflict. However, these efforts have so far failed to bring an end to the fighting. The Ethiopian government has resisted international pressure for a negotiated settlement, insisting on a military victory. The TPLF, for its part, has vowed to continue fighting until its demands for autonomy and accountability are met. The Tigray conflict has plunged Ethiopia into its darkest chapter since the end of the Derg regime. The path to peace and reconciliation remains elusive, with both sides entrenched in their positions and unwilling to compromise. The conflict has not only devastated Tigray, but has also had a destabilizing effect on the entire Horn of Africa region. It has inflamed ethnic tensions within Ethiopia and strained relations with neighboring countries. The international community has a moral obligation to step up its efforts to end the violence, hold perpetrators of human rights abuses accountable, and provide stringent humanitarian assistance to those in need. The road to peace is long and fraught with challenges, but the desire for unity and reconciliation remains a beacon of hope for many Ethiopians. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more mind-blowing discoveries and thrilling adventures into the past.